Let me give you a quick overview of some of the key elements and how you're going to do your final assessment. This is going to be worth a total of about 1,500 points, which is approximately 25% of all the formative points in Chapter 7. What your goal is you're going to make a personalized polynomial using your monogram and the class section that you're in. So if you read this introduction, this right here is an example of my monogram. My name is Nicole N. Landon, so my monogram is NLN. Typically when you make a monogram, they do tend to put, by the way, your last name's initial in the middle. Not always, but that's a way you can do that. I also do have a monogram maker that I found. If you want to, feel free to go to monogrammaker.com. Lots of resources on the internet where you can make your own monogram. Now, we want to analyze this as a polynomial, but we need numbers. So what you're going to do is you're going to convert your monogram over to 3 different numbers, and then you're also going to use the section that you are in FST. So let me show you what I would do for that. Again, using my particular initials, I am NLN for Nicole N. Landon. Using this, the letter N is going to be the number 7 and the letter L is 5. So I'm going to be a 7, 5, 7 combination for 3 of my numbers. I want to make a 4th degree polynomial, so I do need a 4th value. To do that, what I want you to do is to take the number of the hour that you're in, so you're either 3rd, 4th, or 7th hour, and use that as a negative value though. So I do want to have kind of a little bit of variety. We'll use the initials from our monogram, we'll use positive values. I'm going to use, for an example, 3rd hour, so what I would choose as my 3rd number is then, or my 4th number I should say, is going to be -3. So I'm going to use these 4 numbers here to analyze and make myself a personalized polynomial using my monogram in my FST class section. Now, make note every element we talk about on this worksheet, numbers 1 through 8, really have a point structure. So that first element I think was worth 100 points. This one right here, this next element, is another 100 points, so you get an understanding of it. I want you to take your zeros and write an equation in factored format, and for this one also define the vocabulary of zeros and their multiplicity. So first of all, do make sure it's an equation. An equation means something that's y equals. So I'm going to come on in here and I'm going to use y equals. Again, my numbers were 5, 7, 5, and a -3. So I'm going to put this in factored format. So taking my zeros in factored format would be an x minus 5, x minus 7, an x minus 5, and an x plus 3. So that is my equation in factored format. The other thing to get my 100 points for this component is to talk about the zeros and their multiplicity. So I do need to list that. So my zeros and their multiplicity, my zeros are 5 with multiplicity of 2. I have a 0 of 7 with multiplicity of 1. And I have a 0 of -3 with a multiplicity of 1. And that would cover getting my points for the second element here. By the way, another thing you could note for factored format, Algebra 2X likes to really simplify it down more. So what you're going to see more for them is they're going to notice there's 2 factors of the x minus 5. So you might see it written like this, and then they would wrap up with this format. I'm actually would like you to keep it, if you have it, more in this blue format. It's nicer for us to be at a higher level since we are a higher level math class. So the better way to actually write your factored format is, if you do have some multiplicities greater than 1, is to make sure it is all combined in this format in a simplified version. Now the third element is worth another 300 points. The first 200 points is putting this in standard format. You're going to notice I have this back in the longer version where I don't have my x minus 5s combined as a squared. Because I do have to put this in standard format, it does take a little bit of work. I am not going to do all of the math here, but basically you're going to do a handful of multiplication. I personally would first maybe do these 2 binomials and then do these 2 binomials. When you do that, you're going to get one trinomial times another trinomial. And this is where I'm just going to give you the partial notes, right? This is going to be one trinomial and another trinomial once we bring this together and this together. You are then going to have to finish this off. You're going to have to take this trinomial and multiply it by this trinomial. Get your final answer, put it in standard format, and that would be worth the 200 points to have it all written in standard format. After you have that, do not forget to do your vocabulary. Please state for me what is the degree, the leading coefficient, and the constant of your final polynomial, which is in standard format. If you don't remember, go back to your notes to get what that vocab is. Now, your next 200 points is going to be coming from making a graph of your polynomial. What you want to do is look at your equation, which was in factored format from number 2, compare that to your standard format in number 3. You want to actually sketch both of these equations on a graphing calculator. So use your graphing calculator. If you don't have access to that, go to Desmos.com. If when you graph equation 2 and equation 3, if they are not the same graph, you have a math typo somewhere in number 2. It's the same equation, it's just written in a different format, so the graph should be exactly the same. This is a really excellent way to check to see if your math is correct. If it's not, go back to number 3, fix it, resketch it until you have the final graph. Now, the next thing I want you to do is to give me what the one final graph was that you came up with. Make it a decent shape. This is going to be part of your presentation. Now, I'm not going to compute my complete standard format polynomial, but I'm going to show you what a possible graph may have looked like for one. What if you got this as a graph? So it could possibly look something like this. Now, what I want you to do here is label the x and y axis along with their tick marks, so that is important. Especially if you're not counting by ones, you really need to distinguish the scale of the drawing. And then it says here, starting from left to right, make a point at the x-intercept, the y-intercept, all the zeros, the relative mins, and the relative maxes. So I'm going to come over here, and here's an x-intercept already done. My y-intercept, this looks like it's the max there. X-intercept, I got my min, and I have this, and it looks like everything is labeled. Now, go from left to right and actually label them with letters, starting alphabetically with A. So this is going to be A, B, C, D, E, and F. And that's what's going to be required for part 4. Now, part 5 here is worth 300 points, and it is defining these 6 different vocabulary words. So again, feel free to look back in your notes and making sure you do this right. I want you to use the letters that you have, so we have some nice consistency. And either state the point or the intervals for each vocab. So give me just the minimum number of what the interval would look like. So don't give me multiple intervals, like give me the longest interval, so don't make it short. So for example, if you were to find, I'm not going to actually say the vocab word because I don't want to give it away, but let's say you were trying to define this particular hump as an interval. Don't tell me it's from interval A to B, B to C, and C to D. Just tell me it's interval A to D. So what you would say is the x's are here from A and it goes to D. So that's an interval notation. And I'm not going to tell you which vocab word that is because you can go back in your notes and figure that out. Now, if of these 6 vocab words, if one of them isn't an interval, but it's just a point, just state the point at which that happens. And you are going to do that for all 6 of the vocabulary words that are here. Keep in mind, too, when you state the intervals, we state them using the x value, so how you're moving from left to right in terms of the values there. The 6th element, I want you to use the differences theorem to actually prove that you have the degree of the polynomial that you have stated that you have. To do that, you need to get the ordered pairs. Let's use the consecutive values from 1 to 8 because the differences theorem only works if we have consecutive x values for the ordered pairs. If you had your graphing calculator, very easy to find it. Go to second graph and it will show the table of values, but you have to make sure your equation is typed into your calculator first. If you use Desmos, you can try to get the table of values on there, or you could create your own table of values. And let me show you what that could possibly look like. So if you have a graphing calculator, again, it comes out very nice and clean. You can get the table of values. Go ahead and do your differences theorem to prove what it is. Remember, to show the work for that, I personally just like to do showing my first level of differences here. Once you have that one, just to kind of continue to go down into your level of differences. Now, if you aren't able to have the TI 83 or 84 graphing calculator to get these values and you can't figure out how to get the table of values, easy way to do it is go back to your equation that was in standard format from number 3. So take that and just plug in the various values. So if you want to figure out what this number should be, go in, take 1 and put it in for x, simplify, you got it. How do you get this number here for 2? Take 2, put that in for x, and you will get this answer. So you might have to do a little bit of upfront work if you need to create this table of values if you don't have the graphing calculator. I will challenge you this. If you have this equation from the standard format from number 3 and it matched the graph from your factored format of number 2, then your standard format is correct. And this data here will work. If you do the differences theorem, it should work. If it doesn't, double check your math somewhere in here. You probably didn't subtract something right. You probably have a sign issue, and you're not going to see the differences theorem prove for you what the degree of this polynomial is. Now you might be challenged on this. If you aren't coming that it works out and you have a typo, you can send me a picture and I can take a look at it. Let me give you an example to be cautious of though. For example, when I'm trying to find the difference between the number 32 and 16, the trick I'm going to give you is take the second number and subtract the first number from it. So to find this one, do actually 16 minus 32. And when you do that, you're going to get the difference is actually the number negative 16. So the difference between these two is negative 16 because it's going downward. So be cautious of it. That's the most common mistake I'm seeing, is that it's just a simple issue with your own math. You know, another example right here, what's the difference between 12 and 9? It's not 3, it's 9 minus 12, which is negative 3. So that difference is negative 3. So just be cautious and take it slow and it should work out. Step 7 here is worth 200 points. This is where long division is going to come into play. Again, I recommend just going back to your notes to review the long division part. What I want you to do here is you have your polynomial, which has your numbers that represent your monogram and your class hour. I just want our polynomial to represent just your monogram. So I want you to practice using long division, and I want you to factor out your FST hour to do that. You're going to have to, again, take the factor of your FST hour. Now, I was using third hour, so when I wrote my initial polynomial, remember I used the 0 of negative 3, which was the factor of x plus 3. So now I need to long divide out the factor of x plus 3 from my 4th degree polynomial, which is going to be underneath here. Now, once you do that, do all of the long division. When you go all the way down, you can actually check your math, because what should happen, you should get a remainder of 0. If not, you have a math typo and you can fix it. Now, when you're officially done, what you'll be left with here is going to be your quotient, and that's going to become a 3rd degree polynomial. This 3rd degree polynomial will actually be the math representation of your own personal monogram. Now, do you care about that? Probably not. Will you ever use that for anything in real life? Probably not. But is it kind of different and at least has a little bit of flair to it besides just doing some long division for the heck of it? Hopefully you get a little bit of insight from that and your long division works out. If not, let me know what questions you have. Once you have all that done, you have the analysis done. Now you're going to go on to the presentation. Remember, the presentation is what I am going to actually grade. I'm going to look for all of those analysis components. So what you want to present is your complete analysis. It does not have to be a fancy presentation. It doesn't have to be electronic. It just needs to be clean, easy to follow, and organized. You could do it on a single sheet of paper and take an upload picture of that. You could do it on a poster. You could do it electronically, a slideshow. I don't care, as long as I can follow it and it's easy to look at, so I can give you a good grade for this presentation, 100 points. You must include on there your monogram. So if you want to use that monogram maker, you might as well. It might make it look kind of clever. Tell me what class hour you were in so I can confirm. That helps me verify you have the right numbers. And then the 7 elements that we just talked through that are in the analysis must also be included within your presentation. The deadline for your presentations vary just slightly. 4th hour, your initial assignment would be given on the Thursday, May 7th. So that is the due date is Thursday, May 7th at 3 p.m. But you have the deadline. As long as you get that in by Monday at 9 a.m. if you're 4th hour, you're going to be just fine. 3rd and 7th hour, you're getting this assignment on Friday, which is May 8th. It's set on Schoology to the due date at 3 p.m. Again, your deadline is that next class period, which is going to be Tuesday, the 12th at 9 a.m. Anything submitted after these times and dates can only earn up to 60%. This is again about 25% of all of your learning in Chapter 7, so this can really help make your grades stronger. If it comes in late, it might hurt your grade. So please make this deadline. You have the weekend to get it done. Shoot me emails. Let me know what questions you have. Good luck doing your analysis, and we are just wrapping up Chapter 7 with this, and we will move on with one more chapter and then wrap up the year. Have a great day.